Welcome to Basic Brewing Radio for Thursday, January 6th, 2010. I'm James Spencer. Here at Basic Brewing Radio, we're all about home brewing. Well, this week we hear a presentation recorded in Australia from a man who knows a lot about malting and malts. Thomas Kraus-Weyermann from Weyermann Malts gave a presentation in Melbourne a bit ago about how malt is made, what products his company sells, and how you can use those products to make tasty beers. We bring you the highlights of that presentation today. If you're new to home brewing and would like to get into the hobby for the first time, check out our website, basicbrewing.com, where you can find archives of our audio and video podcasts and our DVDs to walk you through basic and more advanced brewing techniques. I'm on Twitter. Basic Brewing is my word there, my name. Also, you can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/basicbrewing.james. And you can find our show page at facebook.com/basicbrewing. Thanks to everybody clicking on the Amazon.com associate link at our basicbrewing.com site. Whenever you think of Amazon, think of us and click on our associate link first. It won't cost you any extra, and you'll be helping us to bring you the show, and we appreciate your support very much. We also have associate links for Brew Your Own magazine and the American Homebrewers Association on our site, too. You can now find our Basic Brewing iPhone and Android podcast apps on their respective stores, and we're on the BlackBerry podcast directory, too. Got a lot of good content today, so I want to get right to it. But before I do, I want to remind you about the deadline for the BYO Magazine BBR Collaborative Experiment number 6. The date is due this Saturday, January 8th. And a miracle of miracles, the data form is online and ready to fill out. You can find that at basicbrewing.com/experiment. I know it works because I've already received data from our buddy Jeff Karpinski, the electric brewer, who you've heard on this show, an all-around good guy. I know that there are more people participating out there, so I'm very interested to see what you guys have found out. basicbrewing.com/experiment. And for those who are joining us fairly recently, this is the 6th in our series of collaborative experiments between Basic Brewing Radio and Brew Your Own magazine. In this one, we asked people to compare two home brewing mashing and lautering techniques, compare them back to back with the same recipe brewed with those techniques. So we should be able to give you some reports soon on how that went. Now let's go right into the meat of the matter this week. A while back, Andy Davison, who you've heard on this program in the past as chairman of the Australian National Homebrewing Conference, Andy sent me some audio that he recorded at a meeting of the Melbourne Brewers. Andy says Australia's oldest homebrewing club. The speaker is Thomas Kraus-Weyermann of Weyermann Malts in Bamberg, Germany. And I thought the presentation was very interesting and not only gives background on how the malt is made, but how we can use different malt products that Weyermann and probably others make to affect the character of our beers. So some technical information on how the stuff gets from seed to the point where you can put it in your mash tun or brew pot, and also how you can tweak your recipes using these different products. So without further ado, let's go to the Fox Hotel in Collingwood.
This is the malting process. I don't know who is really familiar with that, so I'll go through that and explain it a little bit more intense. So a very important point, as I told you in the beginning, is cleaning and grading of the barley. This is one of the key points to make a very good malt. We take the barley from the harvest and then we put it through cleaning and grading 3 to 4 times before we start production. That means all kernels smaller than 2.5 millimeters we grade out, so this goes to the feed industry because we don't want to have the smaller kernels in our malt. We want to have a homogeneous kernel size. This means you have better yield, a better taste, and a better extract. It's all about the ratio between the starch in the kernel and the husk outside the kernel. So the smaller the kernel, the more percentage is the part of the husk. And the husk brings all the unpleasant flavors to a beer. So we want to have bigger, plumper kernels. For that reason, we undergo the cleaning and grading process several times. So we don't want to have any any seeds or anything else, but just barley or wheat in our malt product. After cleaning and grading, it is stored in different storage silos, and before we go from the storage to the steeping, which is the first step in production, it again goes through a cleaning and grading process. So steeping vessels are used to soak the barley with water. So barley during storage shouldn't have more than 14.5% moisture because I told you before, we want to keep it in a good health. But for the germination process, we need moisture of about 45-46%. So we have to bring that moisture into the kernels, into the barley or wheat kernels, and this goes in about 24 to 48 hours. This works in 24 to 48 hours in a steeping vessel. I'll show you a picture later on. So this process needs that time, and during that time the water is aerated, and during the time when the dry steeping time, we also suck all the CO2 off, which start when the barley starts breathing, which we have to bring out of the steeping vessel because the CO2 level would harm the germination process. So after 48 hours at least, we have about 44-45% moisture in all the kernels. They start to breathe, they start to germinate, and then we transfer that into big germination boxes between 60 and 120 ton sizes. So we have these two different sizes, and this germination process needs about 5 to 7 days. It depends on the variety of malt we want to produce, and during this time the natural enzymes which are already in those grain kernels, in the embryo of these grain kernels, they start to being activated, and we try to bring all the proteolysis and amylolysis enzymes into a good activity, and at the end of the process we have to stop that. So we have to dry all the grain down to 4 to 5% moisture, and this takes place in the kilns, which is here. So there we use, for the pale malts, very gentle temperatures between 45 and 85 degrees Celsius, and for darker malts up to 110 degrees Celsius, to kiln that down in about 24 hours. And after that we go through a cleaning process, so we have to get rid of all the sprouts which come up during the germination process, and then it gets to a storage. So the specialty malt, the caramel malts, they undergo another process. So we take malt, germinating malt from the germination boxes, we call it green malt, and then send it to caramelization and roasting drums, where we do all these malts like Cara Pils, Cara Hell, Cara Munich, and so on. And I'll show you that in detail later on. And when we do roasted malts, we take malt from a kiln and then put it to a roasting drum and roast it to the desired color between brown, dark brown and black. Yeah, after cleaning again, it gets to a storage, and from the storage then we send it to the brewery, either in bulk or we package that into bags or totes. Again, after storage, directly before we package everything, it goes through a cleaning process. We want the malt arriving at your place not having any dust or kernels which shouldn't be in that malt. Next one, please. Yeah, this is to show you more or less the different steps of production. So as I explained, all the kiln malt go through a steeping, germination and kilning process. This is mainly the Pilsner malt, the wheat, rye malt, pale ale malt. We have a special process for smoked malt, so we use some beechwood to smoke that malt to get that smoky flavor into the malt. We do some acidulated malt. This is a different process. We do Vienna malt, Munich, melanoidin malt. This is all done on a kiln. So for the very light product Cara Pils, which is our lightest caramel malt, we go through a steeping and germination process. Then we caramelize the malt and then we put it on a kiln to get these very low colors close to Pilsner malt colors. And all the other caramel malts, they go through a steeping, germination, caramelization and roasting process to the desired color between Carahel, which is 20 to 30 EBC, up to Cara Aroma, which has about 400 EBC. And the roasted products, as I told, we are using a kiln malt, and then we roast them either if it is rye, wheat, barley, or spelt. So here you can see different colors from 2 to 1400 EBC, all the different malts which are available. And there's a lot of different malts to choose from to design your special beer and your special flavor you want to achieve in your beer. Yeah, this is a picture of a steeping vessel. So you see it's a huge stainless steel vessel that contains about up to 60 tons of barley. We use a lot of fresh water. We don't reuse any water. We have our own spring water, and so we want to clean the barley and the barley during the steeping process, and we want the barley to get a lot of moisture. So this is the steeping vessel, and this is then the germination box. They all look pretty much the same. You can recognize our colors, yellow and red. Everything is yellow and red at Weyermann. If it's not stainless steel, it's yellow and red. It has to be very clean. So this is the 5 to 7 days germination process. And the malt, you see this turner here is gently turned 2 times a day. That needs about 2.5 hours to go through that whole bed. So this is about 50 meters long, and underneath is a false bottom, so we bring a lot of air through that whole system. This is about 1 to 1.2 meters deep, and we have to keep the moisture in the bed, so the malt is cooled, the air is cooled so the malt has to be cooled to temperatures between 14 and 18 degrees Celsius, and we put a lot of air through that and keep it moist, that the germination process is in an optimum condition. Yeah, again, a few words to caramel malt production. So we take the germinating malt, we call it green malt, from the germination boxes, and then we transfer it to a roasting drum. You'll see pictures later on, and that's a very important process. First thing is the saccharification. So you all have the experience when you have a pan at home, you put some sugar in the pan, you heat it up, the sugar will melt and will be a liquid sugar, and when you go ahead and heat it further on, then you really get this caramel, this hard stuff in that pan. And the same thing is what we want to do inside the kernel. So we put the green malt into this rotating roasting drum, and we use similar temperatures. Sorry. We use similar temperatures as you in your mash tun, between 60 and 75 degrees Celsius, so the natural enzymes can work on the starch. So we get the starch transferred into sugars. You can really check that after about an hour if you take a sample out of the roasting drum and put a kernel between your fingers, so the real liquid sugar will run out of the kernel. It is very sticky and very sweet. So this is a very important step. Thank you. So without this saccharification, you cannot do a real caramel malt. After we have this saccharification, we heat the malt up to different temperatures, up to 200 degrees Celsius. It depends how dark and how intensive the caramel aroma should be. And after that, the roasting drum is unloaded, and then the whole malt is cooled down and transferred to silos. Yeah, roast malt is a similar process. We use similar roasting drums for that. but the raw material is not green malt, it is already killed malt. We transfer that to a roasting drum, and then we use temperatures up to 250 degrees Celsius, similar to coffee roasting processes. And then we roast these different malts to colors between brown, dark brown, and black. And then it's all then the same process. It's cooled down again and then transferred to silos. Here's the picture of 2 of our roasting drums. In total, we have 7 of these roasting drums. They have a capacity up to 3,500 kilograms each. The process is around 3 hours. Everything is computerized and fully automated, but we have very good operators. They are there. We work on a 3-shift, 7-day system, and these operators control the process beside our automation. They take samples and they check every batch that we have the right color and the right flavor in the malt, that when the malt arrives at your place, it should be always very homogeneous and very similar in color, flavor, and taste. Yeah, this is a very interesting sheet where I can show you the difference between a caramelization and roasting drum and a kiln. As I told you, we just put about 3,500 kilograms of green malt into these rotating roasting drum, and there we have the temperatures between 60 and 75 degrees Celsius during the saccharification process. And it's very important that we use these roasting drum because the heat comes from outside. The roasting drum is turning constantly, and so each kernel has the same temperature. So this is the reason that we really get up to 100% saccharification of all the kernels. And when all the liquid inside the kernels is ready, we heat that up to temperatures much higher, and then get the real caramel malt in the kernel, which you can see when you take caramel kernels of Cara Munich or Cara Red or whatever, cut that, you see the really glassy inside, the glassy caramel inside. Compared to a kiln is a different system. The kiln is made to make big batches of pale malt. So you have about 1 to 1.2 meters height of green malt here on a false bottom, and you bring forced air through hot air through that system. So you will always have different temperatures in different layers of this green malt bed. So you'll never have 100% saccharification of all the kernels, because when you have a saccharification here, these temperatures are too low for that. So if you go on, you never will have a very homogeneous caramel malt. There is malt around which is called caramel malt, and it's made on a kiln. It can be much cheaper because you can put up to 300 tons on such a kiln compared to 3,500 kilograms in a roasting drum. You can make it very cheap here, but it's always inhomogeneous, and you will always have different flavors and different colors in each layer. In total, it's a blend of different malts with a color, but it will be always different from a malt which comes from a caramelization drum, which has these specific caramel flavors, and these flavors you want to have in your specific beer. Yeah, how can you use those specialty malts to improve beer quality? A very important point is Cara Pils, Cara Foam, or Cara Hell. This is you can use that to compensate over modified malts. You can improve the flavor stability with Cara Hell, Cara Munich, and Melanoidin. You improve the foam stability, especially with Cara Foam, Cara Pils, Cara Hell, and Cara Munich. And also, you have a lot of possibilities to improve the palatefulness and the taste of your beer with using different caramel malts. You can achieve nice beer colors, reddish, amber, brown, dark, whatever. And you also can adjust your color in light beer styles, also like Pilsner and so on, in using some specialty malts to add to the grist.
Thomas,
Yeah.
When you talk about over-modified malts,
Yeah.
what sort of malts are you talking about? And what sort of effects are the over-modified malts going to have on beers?
So over-modified malts is that, sometimes you can get over-modified malts which have a lot of enzyme capacity, but they don't have that special flavor, this full-bodied flavor, and they are easy to use, but they are not very flavorful. So that's the difference, and for that reason you need some specialty malts to bring some flavor back and also some color. Next one, please. Yeah, some ideas what makes the character of a specialty beer. First of all it's the individual character of a beer. Then innovation means something really new. It's not just a new label or a new bottle or a new carton or whatever. So it should be really in the beer. Specialty beer is always away from the mainstream. This is why there are so many homebrewers and so many microbrewers and pub brewers around, because they, especially in countries where the beer market is dominated by one or two or three big players doing almost the same beers. So this is the reason to use specialty beer or to produce specialty beers with a special character. And a beer with character should be also clearly recognizable. Where does the flavor come from? So on the one side we have the malts, we have what is also very important, water, yeast, hops, the fermentation process, and also some aromas and flavors. I'm talking about malt today, so I like this sheet a lot. So this is just a few examples of how many different tastes of flavors you can find in a beer. So when you think about I like wine a lot, so our friends from the wine industry, they are very, very lucky, and they did it very well to explain all their characters in their beverages. So they are not talking about diacetyl, they are talking about the buttery flavor, and this is something which makes their wine or their product very special. So we shouldn't look for any flavors which we don't like in a beer. We just should look for more and better explanations of what you find in the beer and what makes the beer more specific. And this is some very interesting things to look at. If you look on a beer list, usually you'll find the name of the brewery and maybe the type of the beer. But if you look on a wine list, a lot of these wineries, they will explain all the different tastes and flavors of their wine, which makes it very, very specific. And we have lots of possibilities to explain all our friends and beer lovers and customers what interesting different flavors you can find in beer, not just the hop and maltiness, but also wood flavors, coffee flavors, toffee flavors, smoke, plum, apple. There's so many things to detect. We just have to think about it, and we have to work and to train ourselves to try beers and to think of all these typical beer aromas. What possibilities of differentiation we have with the raw material malt. So we have color, aroma, flavor, special barley or wheat varieties. Then we have grain varieties like rye, spelt, oat, buckwheat, and so on, or organic products. So when it comes to beer color, so we go from golden, yellow beers to red beer styles, which are very interesting. A lot of brewers are asking for recipes for red beer styles, copper, amber beers, brown beers, up to black beers, Schwarz beers, which are which have an interesting market share now also in Germany. So Schwarz beer became more and more favorable. There's lots of, like, I think you all know Köstritzer Schwarz beer, which is a really black, dark beer with a special character. This is also a product which has a lot of lovers, and a lot of beer connoisseurs like that a lot. yeah, aroma flavor. So we have malt notes, sweet, malty, honey, jam, some caramel notes like toffee, bread crust. We can find fruits and notes and nuts, nutty notes like hazelnut, almond, pistachio, raisins, vanilla, and the roasty notes like coffee, dark chocolate. This is also something very interesting to use some malt to bring a dark chocolate aroma in a strong winter warmer beer or something like that, and smoky notes like wood, clove, or smoked ham. Sometimes people ask me how we bring the ham flavor into our smoked beer. I always call it vegetarian ham. So yeah, yeah, yes.
How do you get these flavours by these hazelnuts and vanilla flavours into your malt?
So it's not that we have a special process to bring that in, but if you choose the right malt and the right combination, you can have these aromas in your beer. So especially if you use some cara aroma, you'll find some raisin and some nutty aromas in your beer later on. It's all a process of a malt combination and the fermenting process. It's not that we add any nutty flavors into our malt. It's just what we did find out in doing a lot of research, in doing a lot of brews with all different malt combinations. These are all notes which you can find in a beer, and we have just to describe it and to show it to our friends and customers and so on, because this makes a beer really unique, and this helps to really bring beer to another level compared to wine. It's always wine and beer. Yeah, innovation. So more and more brewers like to use also rye malt, so different rye varieties. That brings a bready-like, robust character to the beer. And spelt is a grain which seems to be very healthy. So more and more brewers use spelt or oats, or we are working on buckwheat, which has some very nice flavors. Also some nutty flavors, some almond flavors in buckwheat. And it could be a good base for a gluten-free beer. Yeah, organic. We got a lot of questions about organic malt. Organic is a market where just limited amounts of organic grain is available, and the increase of organic grain is just 3 to 5% a year, because it's a long process for a farmer to convert his farm from a conventional farm to an organic farm. It needs 3 to 5 years. It depends on which different certification he's looking for, and there's lots of different certifications available. This is just some examples. NOP is for the American market, just for Japan, BioSwiss, and so on. So there's lots of things going on. All in common is that they don't use any chemical fertilizers and pesticides and so on, and they try to make it as it was made 100 or 200 years ago. So there's lots of organic products coming up. We do an interesting range also of different organic products, from base malt like Pilsner and Pale Ale malts to different caramel malts. So it's a good variety of malt which can make also a lot of different organic beer styles.
What sort of difference in yield do you expect as a maltster when you're dealing with organic versus, I guess, modern malt?
So if you are working on these high standards as we do, we have a lot of things which we have to grade out and to sort out of the grain we get from the farmers, because there's very often different seeds in these batches, and we have to do a lot of grading and sorting, and so usually it's about 78% of yield, and with organic it's about 70 or 72% of yield in the malt house. So it's a lot more work. You have to keep everything separate. you have to have all these documents, you have to clean additionally, and you have to mark all the bags and so on, and you have to undergo all these audits. These audits are usually it's twice a year, and they ask for a lot. So yeah, it's on the one hand side, it's a lot of money you have to spend, but on the other side, it's also good training for all the people in our facility to clean everything very properly and so on. So it's always good to have very high standards.
Do they taste better, or do they taste any different?
This is your job to taste that.
I mean, this is what we're after, you know. I mean, do they look?
You always have to try that yourself. So this is something, you know, it's. Have you ever tasted the difference between an organic wine or a normal wine, or organic bread or another bread? So I think it's very important that some people like to have more healthy products, and if someone is really addicted to this organic healthy product, this is a way to produce those products for these customers. If you at home want to have organic fruit and organic coffee, then you should use organic malt to produce your organic beer.
I guess it's also about the sustainability of the farming practices, isn't it?
Sorry?
I guess it's also about the sustainability of this.
That's another point. Yeah. I just wanted to go through a few examples of our malts. One of the malts I like a lot is the melanoidin malt. This brings really a very nice and intensive red color into the beer, and it has a lot of malty taste. So I like that malt a lot, even if it's freshly produced. So I like to try a little bit, and this is really great malt to use for red beers and also to underline maltiness in a beer. So a lot of brewers tell me this is one of our best kept secrets, the melanoidin malt, and this is a malt that almost fit to every style of beer.
Are you able to tell us what's going on inside that malt to really give that red character?
So to create the different colors in a malt is just a process between sugars and protein, and this process needs some heat to create the flavors and the colors. And there's this very specific process to produce melanoidin malt to get more of the reddish colors into the malt than the brown color. Yeah, smoked malt, I talked about that before. So we use beechwood to smoke our malt. It's a very different flavor than peated malt. Peated malt is mainly used for whiskey production, and it brings some harsh flavors to the beer. So I like a lot these beechwood flavor. So we burn dry old beechwood in one of these kilns, and this brings the smoky character and the smoky taste into the malt. And some brewers think this is just suitable for really smoky beers, but we tried a lot of these smoked malt in different beers like dark beers, Märzen beers and so on, and just small amounts, 5 or 10% of the smoked malt. You won't detect a very smoky flavor in the beer, but this makes the beer much more complex. So you have so many different flavors and aromas than in this beer. This is something you asked before, so when we had all these different aromas. So using a part of the mash as a smoked malt for different beers, just 5 or 10%. You won't have a smoky beer, but you'll get a lot of more different flavors, also some vanilla flavors and so on, when you put that to your grist bill, and this makes your beer even more complex and more interesting. This is also good malt if you want to make something like a whiskey beer, to add some smoked malt to a beer and then store it or age it in a wooden barrel, something like that, so you can really get a very nice smoky flavors, whiskey type flavors in a beer, which can make the beer also very interesting.
What's the stability like with the smoked malt in terms of having that smoky compound over time?
So usually our malts have about 12 months of shelf life, and if it's in that bag and it's stored properly, shouldn't be okay. It should be okay. Yeah, Carapils, we talked about that. This is a very light caramel malt. This is a malt which you can almost add to every brew. It brings a lot of more mouthfeel to the beer, and it enhances the foam stability. You know, in Germany we are very keen in having a good foam on our beer. We don't like beers with no foam on top, so a beer should have really nice foam, and for that reason Carapils is very often used in various beer styles. Carahel, a very also a light caramel malt, 20 to 30 EBC. This is a malt which is a lot used in the typical German Helles or lager beers to underline that golden color. It brings also more mouthfeel, more flavor, more malt sweetness into the beer, and it's the malt which is used in almost all the Hefeweizen beers, because a wheat malt usually is very light in color, more a grayish color, and when you think about these wonderful Erdinger, Paulaner and so on beers, they have these golden or orange, Schäferhofer, it's more orange color. So this comes from Carahel. It's used from 5 to 15% in the grist to underline this nice color and nice flavor, especially in wheat beers. Cara Red, this is a malt we started about 6-7 years ago because there was so much demand for a reddish caramel malt, and Cara Red perfectly fits into that. It has a sweet caramel flavor, and it's perfect to have these reddish color in reddish style beers. Okay, so Cara Munich, this is one of our oldest brand, Cara Munich. We do it in 3 different types, 1, 2 and 3. Very often we find specs that someone says, okay, use a dark caramel malt between 80 and 150 EBC. So we don't want you to adjust every time with each delivery, with each malt you buy in your homebrew shop to adjust your recipe. That's the reason that we do it in these 3 different types. It has always a brilliant brown color and a very nice intensive caramel flavor. It's used for all different types of dark beers to bring out that typical dark flavor and character to a dark beer. Cara Wheat, it's a dark caramel malt based on wheat. Wheat has a specific character, so wheat doesn't have any husk, and the husk is a part of the kernel, as I explained before, which brings more harshness to a product, to a beer. So a caramel wheat is very mild, has some nice flavors, some bready characters, and it's very easy to use also for all kinds of dark beers. Cara Roma, this is a very dark caramel malt, 300 to 400 EBC. It's really dark brown. Originally we started to produce that as a grain coffee. This was used from different companies as a base for grain coffee, and then we tried that in the pilot brewery, and we did find out it has very nice caramel flavors. This brings some of these nutty raisin flavors to a beer, and it's perfect for really dark porters, stouts, Schwarzbiers and so on, to underline the maltiness and bring some complexity to the beer. Cara Rye, again, another grain for a caramel malt. Rye has the specific breadish or bready taste, rustic, very, very interesting taste, and it's very often used also for dark beers, or even if you want to make a beer with different grains. So this could be one grain to use for a 3, 4 or 5 grain beer. In Germany we do some rye beers, therefore it is also used, if you think about Schierlinger rye beer, it's a dark rye beer where they also use caramel rye malt. Carafa Special. I guess you all know our Carafa malts. Carafa is the dark roasted malts, and Carafa Special, we started to do that product because there was a lot of demand for a very smooth and very soft roasted malt. And since the husk of the kernel is the part which burns at first during the roasting process, I get these very roasty flavor which you want for a really intensive stout beer or something like that. But for a beer like a Schwarz beer or Alt beer or another dark beer, you really don't want these harsh flavors. So for that reason, we peel the husk off before the malting process, and then we get that mild roasted aroma in this malt. So Carafa Special is a malt which is also available in 3 different types, and it's often used for really dark beers. We had Carrara before. Next one, please. Oh, chocolate wheat. That's again wheat. It's a roasted wheat malt, and wheat has no husk, so it's very mild. It's very often used for dark or for dark wheat beers or bock wheat beers. Think of Aventinus from Schneider, which is a very dark one. They use chocolate wheat malt to bring this really dark and very intensive flavor. And on the other hand, if you want to produce a beer with really a chocolate flavor, we tried a lot of different recipes. So like a dark, very intensive winter warmer beer, a strong beer using some chocolate wheat malt, you can really bring a dark chocolate flavor into the beer, which can be very nice as a Christmas beer or a seasonal beer or something like that. Yeah, so this year we also we started with 2 new beer or malt styles, the Bohemian malts and the Belgian styles. So we now do an authentic floor malted Bohemian Pilsner. It was always my dream to have a floor malting. There wasn't any floor malting available in Germany anymore. We never did floor malting. We started as a drum malting in 130 years ago. So we never had floor malting. So I had to do some research on that. And since I like the Czech beers like Budweiser, Pilsner, Woodwell, these full-bodied lager beers and Pilsner beers a lot, so I did some research on that, and we did find a very nice floor malting company, next one please, in the Czech Republic, not far from Prague, which was still there, and we got that malt house and we refurbished everything, and we now do about 2,500 tons of original floor malted Bohemian Pilsner malt there. We use grain varieties like Hanka, Boyos and Tola, old varieties which are grown in that area to do that specific malt. It has a lot of very intense malty flavors, a great malt to use to produce an authentic Bohemian Pilsner beer or Bohemian lager beer, and we just came out with that product, and we have a lot of very good response to that. A lot of people ask me why I did start floor malt again, but I'm very sure that this can make great malt, and I wanted to have something like that and to provide all our friendly customers with a very exclusive floor malted Bohemian Pilsner malt.
Do you have a specific idea about what makes the difference between the floor malt and the normal malt process?
It's a different process. So it's a different grain variety, which brings more flavor into the beer, into the malt, and on the other hand, it's the process which is much slower, and you have much more CO2, much higher CO2 levels in the grain bed and so on, because you don't have any forced air. Everything is just done by hand, and we just produce between October and April, so we can't do any malt in summertime when it's warm. We just have the natural cooling just air going through that, and that works very, very good for us. You all know Samuel Adams in the U.S. They started to use that malt last year on their Noble pills. They were very lucky with that, having a very specific taste, and they are doing that. They'll do that again. Since I also like a lot the Belgian beer styles, not just the fruity beers, but also the Abbey beers and the blonde style beers, we did a lot of research in Belgium, and we came up with the Cara Belge, which has about 30 to 40 EBC color, and it has a nice mild caramel aroma and some honey aroma in there. We detected some honey aroma in those beers, and this is perfect to do beers like a Belgian blonde, beers like Leffe, and so on. So it's a great malt to use for those beer styles. And nevertheless, Abbey malt, since I like these dark Abbey beers and Trappist beers a lot, and we have lots of contacts to those brewers, we came up with an Abbey malt, 40 to 50 EBC. It also is slightly reddish malt with intense malty aroma, perfect for those Trappist beers and dark Belgian style beers. Yeah, some words about our product Cinnamar. I don't know if you are familiar with that. So this is our roast malt beer. It's the same facility where we produce our Weyermann malt extracts. So we have a wide range of extracts from Bohemian Pilsner, from Bavarian Pilsner, wheat malt, wheat beer, Bavarian wheat beer extract, Vienna Red, Munich Amber, and so on. So this is all produced in this brewery. It's a setup with a 100 hectoliter brew house with fermenters. We have a filtration line and a vacuum evaporation to make sure that we have the right consistency in our product. The main product we produce there for more than 100 years is Cinnamar. It's very black, very dark. It's easy to use to bring more black color into very dark beers. So it helps to create stouts, Schwarz beers, dark beers, and so on. Also to adjust some beer color if you want to have a little bit more intense color in lighter beers. And it's a great product also to use for other beverages like spirits. If you do some whiskey at home, you can add some cinnamon and have a wonderful color. Iced tea, cola products, and so on. And it's also used for coloring food and baking products. I personally use it a lot if I like cooking, so if I do a roast or something like that in the oven, so just maybe 20 minutes or half an hour before end of that roasting process, I brush a little bit of Cinnamar on the top of the roast, and it gets a perfect golden brown color, and everybody is surprised how good that looks. Yeah, Cinnamar is a liquid product, 8,500 EBC. It is very intense in color, very easy to use. It's very soluble in all the steps of the process, and causes no haze because it is filtered, and it's really a natural product. No E numbers, nothing to put on the label. We use for each different beer style we do the malt extract for. We use a different grain bill, so we blend, especially, think about Pilsner malt. We use some Carapils, we use Pilsner malt, we use some acidulated malt to bring it to the optimum pH. And then we use that proper mashing regime, like a step infusion for the Pilsner malt. Then the wort is boiled, so we get rid of all the hot troop. And after that, we put it through a whirlpool, then through a centrifuge and a filter system. So these malt extracts are very clean, and they have the clean taste of a real good concentrated brewer's wort. We have very good response from all over the world for these extracts, and also a lot of brewers use that to propagate their yeast with this malt extract properly. So thank you very much for your for being so patient watching my presentation, and I hope you have some more questions. I'm happy to answer questions. If you have anything later on, you can always send us the next picture please, an email. So we are on the next one, please. We are on the website www.weyermann.de, and we are always happy to answer all the questions. We have, if you have any questions to recipes or so on, and if you need good Weyermann malt, talk to David Cryer. He'll make it happen. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks very much again to Andy Davison for providing that audio. A lot happens behind the scenes at a maltsters to bring grain from its seed form into something that is ready for the mash tun or brew pot. Very interesting stuff. I'd love to see that process in person. Be sure to check out Weyermann's website for more information, including some recipes, too. That's Weyermann.de. That's WEYERMANN.de. And if you don't read German, click on the little flag of your country or one nearby that you understand on the left-hand side of the page below the navigation links. Very interesting stuff. If you have brewing questions, show suggestions, or just want to say howdy, write to james@basicbrewing.com, or just fill out the contact form on basicbrewing.com, and please don't forget to tell us where you're from. You can find our new DVD, Extract Brewing and Partial Mashing, on our website. Also, our 2011 Brewers Logbooks are going out the door. Check out our online store for that. Also, you can check out our other DVDs, Stepping into All-Grain, Low-Tech Lagering and Decoction Mashing, and Introduction to Wine Kits as well. You can find combo deals on our site to save you a few bucks if you want to buy more than one DVD at a time. And you can find our Basic Brewing shirts in the store, too. You can see a listing of the fine folks across the country who sell our DVDs on basicbrewing.com. And if there isn't a vendor in your area, you can order them online at our online shop at basicbrewingshop.com. Thanks to everybody who's continued to click on our Amazon.com link. We appreciate the support there. Our featured products this week that were purchased through the link are Northern Industrial Multi-Purpose Drill-Powered Pump. Drill-Powered Pump. Not multi-purpose drill, but drill, you know. And Norpro Stainless Steel Butter Melter. Thanks again, everybody. I can't tell who bought what, so no worries there. Just click on the Amazon.com logo on our site the next time you feel like Amazon shopping, and we appreciate your support. Don't forget our associate links to the American Homebrewers Association and BYO Magazine, too. That's all until next time. Until then, thanks for listening, everybody. I'm James Spencer. Production help for Basic Brewing Radio and our website is provided by our buddy Kelly Dodson. Basic Brewing Radio is a production of Active Voicing. We'll talk to you next time, everybody. So long.